So what we've got there is the Evolution Stratosphere in one of the presets that it has. I think it's called Legendary. It's the distorted Stratocaster guitar from Orange Tree Samples. And that was a kind of odd performance played by me on the ROLI Seaboard RISE25, the 2-octave Seaboard Rise keyboard. What I was doing is gliding all over the place, doing weird pitch bends and modulations. And the reason you can do that is because the ROLI Rise has this innovative plastic kind of rubbery key wave surface rather than individual keys that allows you to seamlessly bend between notes. Kontakt takes a few things to set it up to do this, and that is described on some of the other YouTube videos that I've put up recently, so have a look at this channel and have a look at those. But basically what we've got here very simply is just a straightforward MIDI note on, note off controller with 2-octave pitch bend. In fact, in this case, it's got a 1-octave pitch bend because that's what the Stratocaster guitar supports. So the only modifications needed to get this working perfectly is to go to the setup window of the Evolution Stratosphere, go all the way down to the bottom, just off the bottom actually, and select your pitch bend up and down range to 1 octave, and that gives you the whole pitch bend octave, which is great for doing those ridiculous distorted electric guitar slides between notes, which are characteristic of that kind of style of playing. So that gives you a monophonic instrument. This has all been sent on one MIDI channel into one instance of Kontakt on one sample playing, which is the Stratosphere sample. If you try and play polyphonically, everything you do to one note will be applied to all the others. So a pitch bend, for instance, if I just play 2 notes, that's 1 note, then 2 notes, it pitch bends both notes. So that's nice. It does actually help doing some of the solo performances you need to do on guitar or synth guitar like this. But it doesn't give you that lovely polyphonic control that you like to have. So the way you do that is you save this, and I've got this saved as ROLI Evolution Stratosphere. You'd save that as a preset, and then you'd load up 6 versions of these with each set to a different MIDI channel, which is what I've done on this version instance of Kontakt here. So what we've got here is we've got 6 ROLI Evolution Stratosphere presets, the preset I've made up with that 1 octave pitch bend in it. This is a clean Stratocaster guitar sample, which just uses the sustain, and it's the setup. If you go to the setup, you can see down the bottom there the pitch bend is set to 1 octave, and if you go to the tone, I've turned off things like distortion and tremolo and wah-wah and reverb, so it's a very clean sample, and I've put it through a little generic reverb within Cubase. In fact, it's a UAD EMT 250 reverb. So that's just an extra thing I've done to make it sound a bit sweeter. And all I've done is I've saved this as one preset, and then I've just loaded up 6 of these presets, and each one automatically maps. You can see here MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. My Seaboard Rise is set to 6-note polyphonic, and it's loaded up 6 sets for one for each note. If you're worried about memory, you can see this is a 494 megabyte sample set, but just cast your eye up here. It's only using 494 megabytes in Kontakt, despite the fact it's got 6 loaded. Of course, it's sharing the same samples between all 6. It's the same patch, and it's sharing between all 6. So in fact, despite the fact I've got 6 instances of this loaded into one Kontakt, it's only using the memory footprint of 1. So you're getting 5 for the price of 1, or 6 for the price of 1, which is fantastic. So now what we've got is we've got polyphonic MIDI setup. This is set to MIDI channel any, which means that as the Seaboard sends different channels on different MIDI channels, each note will come out on a different channel in Kontakt. So if I just play a note, There we are, that's playing a B and it's coming out on channel 1. E is coming out on channel 6, G on channel 2, A on channel 3, and you can play up to 6 notes. So, and there's my 6 notes, and you can see each note has its own instant of contact. Each note can actually be routed if you really wanted to a different output and processed differently, but that would be a little bit strange. But it does mean you've got a lot of control over that. The great thing also is each individual note has its own modulation control. And again, on this instant, to make things simple, I'm only using the pitch bend, the wobble on the key, to give me some vibrato or some just general bend. But you can imagine you could actually use the CC74 on the ROLI to maybe control some vibrato depth, some chorus, some flanger, or something completely weird like that, some tonal property, just to make the instrument sing a little bit more. But just to give you an example, I can play 2 notes. And what you could hear there is I was wobbling my finger on the uppermost note, but the lowermost note was just keeping a normal sustain with no vibrato. Or I could wobble both fingers and add a bit of vibrato to both notes. So what you've got is amazing control. You can play a chord and apply a little bit of vibrato, a little bit of depth, or you can bend individual notes. If I drop it down an octave, so you can do some really nice, smooth kind of sounds like that. And you can see all I was doing there was just sustaining a chord with one of my hands on the ROLI keyboard, keeping them fairly still so I didn't introduce any pitch variation. And then with my right hand just doing some bends between notes. And because the bend is set up to an octave, you can essentially play 2 notes. And you can see I was just using essentially 2 channels at a time there. So this gives you enormous flexibility in playing. Obviously you don't want to cram this into every piece you compose, but you can imagine with a nice slid acoustic guitar or electric guitar, that just makes it sound really quite beautiful. So if you've got a ROLI Seaboard Rise and you've got Kontakt and want to start playing, this is a good way to start.